Hi folks, welcome to your latest planning outlook that's updated on Tuesday evening the 3rd of November. Now, after some very wild weather in recent times, all looking quite a bit quieter as we go through the next week or so, as high pressure is nearby, with dry conditions prevailing for many places for a good few days ahead. There will be inversion conditions around, so some low-level fog with the summits poking through above that at times, a decent amount of sunshine around. Now, it's snow-covered mountains that we've got at the moment, giving us a taste of winter. The bad news of this forecast is that milder conditions are more common in the next week to 10 days. So just a taste of winter at the moment, but that's all we're getting for the moment at least. The charts then for the days ahead, Wednesday looking like this, high pressure starting to build from the west through the day. A few early flurries of snow just around some coastal hills, but those fading out, and most places dry with some sunshine. Still a chilly day on Wednesday. The strongest of the winds across the northern half of Scotland. Elsewhere the winds fairly light. We're just seeing a weak warm front approaching the west and northwest of the Highlands later in the day, with just bits and pieces of patchy rain and drizzle coming on here, but that's not really coming to a great deal. Now those fronts stay well away toward the north into Thursday as the high builds right across England and Wales, but we're still just feeling the effects of a damp air mass coming in around the high from the Atlantic. So western coastal mountains in Scotland very much clagged in fog from low levels upwards, although there is the scope for inversion conditions just allowing the high tops to poke through, maybe increasingly likely as the day is going on. The cloud breaking up the further east you go, so a better chance of some brighter skies and cloud-free summits toward the eastern side of the Highlands, and uncertainty just to how much extent that damp air and low cloud and fog extends towards Cumbria and across North Wales. Many places here may well stay with a bright and sunny day. Lightest of the winds then England and Wales, strongest of the winds across the north of the Highlands. Temperatures tending to be just above freezing on the mountains during the day, but some frost in the valleys and the glens and some corries first thing. High pressure stays around into Friday and it's a dry day overall. Still the legacy of some banks of low-level cloud and fog, but by Friday all the higher mountains above an inversion, so clear of any lower level murk, and even that may well break up substantially as the day goes on, so some places coming through with a good deal of sunshine all the way across the mountains. Winds mostly light, just maybe a strengthening southeasterly as we go through the day, particularly around some coastal hills, and locally gusty in places to lower levels. Temperatures then on the mountains much milder by this stage, particularly above the inversion, but first thing in the morning again, chance for some frost. Things get a little bit more complicated into the weekend. Still generally a story of inversion conditions and low-level fog and the mountains largely free of cloud. Temperatures again on the mild side. Maybe just a slightly stronger east by southeast wind across Wales and maybe just strengthening a bit across the Pennines too, but light winds under slack pressure further north. The low pressure system and fronts which lurk around Biscay may just start to extend a little bit further northwards with time, with some cloud building across Wales and maybe a few spits and spots of rain if that does just begin to edge in, but most places looking likely to be in for a dry and benign day. Absolute detail and timing uncertain by Sunday, but just the suggestion of that low to the south just shuffling a bit further northwards with some damp conditions, not the heavy rain that we've seen in recent times, but maybe just a murky, drizzly, damp day with maybe some persistent rain developing in places across Wales and maybe extending further northwards into the Pennines. The northward extent is uncertain at this distance. More likely, Scotland stays dry with just a strengthening easterly wind, possibly still some inversion conditions around, maybe some banks of low cloud being dragged onto some eastern hills with that general easterly flow. The clearest of the conditions out toward the west, and temperatures again generally on the mild side. Now we stick with those bits and pieces of weather systems just trying to drift northwards as we head onwards into the start of next week. It's not the powerful weather systems that we've seen recently, so it's fairly slack pressure patterns, but it may just mean that we start next week with some damp and murky conditions becoming a little bit more extensive for a time. And then it's a battle between high pressure to the east and lower pressure out over the Atlantic, which will take us onwards through next week. Just uncertainty how soon anything really tries to get back in off the Atlantic. It doesn't immediately look as though we go into anything particularly unsettled, frontal systems being held at bay by still fairly high pressure. The general airflow, though, is from the south, so mild conditions will be the order of things. Maybe some frost overnight on clearer, calmer nights, but other than that, we're not really looking at particularly wintry conditions. The temperatures with that southerly airflow indeed could be very mild in some places. Those patterns do seem to prevail as we go onwards through to the middle of the month. That's the 7-day pressure anomalies from one of the longer range forecast models, and has good agreement with other models as well. It's the idea of high pressure that's just to the east of us, low pressure to the west, a prevailing mild southerly airflow. Sort of situation where some local phone effect, where the air moves over the hills and descends and warms as it does so, could lead to some spots in northern Scotland giving some very mild days, even into the mid or high teens Celsius in a few spots under that sort of weather pattern. So we'll have to wait a bit longer for some truly wintry weather, but at least it's going to be a bit quieter than we've seen in recent times. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.